But personally, what I'll do is I'll try to avoid cash grabs. I will try to avoid obvious pump and dump programs.
What does an obvious pump and dump look like to you? Hey guys, welcome to a brand new episode of the Chain Debrief podcast right here on Chain Debrief's YouTube channel, the podcast where we talk about all things cryptocurrencies. If you're wondering why Jacky and I are sitting on the same side of the table today, cannot just be me and Jacky all the time, right? So we decided to invite a very, very special guest. He owns not just one, but two Bored Ape Yacht Club NFTs. It's none other than Mr. Sim Jian Hong. Thank you so much for being here.
Sure, thanks guys. Very excited to be here.
Alright, so I think, let's not waste any time. We've got a lot of questions to ask. So sure. I think what a lot of people will probably be wondering, right, is before we dive into the whole crypto NFT space, what is your background?
So I'm an equity investor. I used to work in Temasek and now I work in a private equity fund. So I look at private companies, invest in them, and I find what's exciting out there and I try to invest in them as well.
Okay.
So how do you get started with NFT? What was that moment that you decided, hey, I'm gonna go into NFT?
Sure. So I think I started dabbling in crypto sometime around 2016, largely around ETH.
Okay.
A few of my friends were very into the space, and I also had a friend who was building in the space. So he brought me into the space, and I got quite excited by it. But I really got into NFTs only this year when I truly understood what Web3 was about and how it affected NFTs.
Okay.
And I think maybe just an introduction is that Web 1 was open source. It was sometime during the 1980s to 2000s, and this was open source protocols. This was decentralized the internet, and because of this decentralized nature and open source nature, a lot of the value accrued around the edges of the platform. So between the content creators and the users. Then Web 2 came in. This is probably around 2005 to current, and this was dominated by your huge centralized platforms, right?
Yep.
Like YouTube and Google and Amazon. But what happened here was that these platforms were so dominant because, let's say for example, if you are a content creator on YouTube, you're a YouTuber. When you upload, your content onto YouTube, you're actually signing away the ownership of your content away to YouTube.
YouTube owns
Correct.
that IP, yeah.
Exactly that. So it's the same for Facebook, right? When you upload a photo on Facebook, you're also signing away ownership of that content. And Facebook then can do whatever they want to. They can monetize the data, however they want. They can sell ads on top of that.
It's not just the content, right? I think a lot of people like to say I've got this many followers, but you don't own those followers. Correct. Facebook owns those followers.
Correct. That's right. And then in a certain way, they also, because you have these followers, they then give you a certain cut of the advertising revenues that they earn, right, from other brands that that they're clients, right? So in a certain way, there is an intermediary in between the content creator and the users which they're actually selling the story to. So I think this is what Web 2 is about, and Web 3 really changes that. And because of crypto and tokenization, what Web3 does is that it brings forth the open source, decentralized nature of Web 1, and it also brings forth the modern functionality of the centralized applications in Web 2. And because of crypto and tokenization, now the content creator can use tokens and NFTs to directly engage, with the users. And I think, this is Chris Dixon from A16Z talks about this very well. In his post, NFT and 1,000 True Fans.
So it's very much about the technology for you, like your fascination about NFTs.
Yeah, I think it's definitely that. I think this creates a whole new business model. I think you're able to disintermediate the platform that has been accruing all the value. I mean, look at all the top 5 companies by market cap in the world. These are the big guys who are taking a lot of ad revenue, right? But NFTs allow the content creator, right, to disintermediate that and go straight to the user. And I find that very fascinating.
Plus, it's not just that, right? The royalties are mostly in perpetuity. So a content creator will be able to earn, their grandchild might be able to still earn royalties 100 years from now.
Exactly that.
Okay, so I think we talked about the technology and your fascination in it, right? But I think one thing in a lot of people's minds is that we've seen a lot of celebrities by Bored Apes. and you own Bored Apes yourself. And I think what a lot of people like to comment is that, oh, this particular celebrity is like buying their way into like clout or like some form of influence, right? Was that a factor in why you bought into Bored Apes at all? Or was it really just purely about the technology?
I think when I went to Bored Apes, it still wasn't that popular yet.
Okay.
I don't think only Steph Curry bought the ape.
So that was after Steph Curry bought.
It was probably after around the same time that Steph Curry bought. I think I got a bit more excited then. I only got into Bored Ape after they launched, they airdropped the mutants. So it was that weekend after they airdropped the mutants, and I thought that it was super interesting. I thought that this is a very interesting way where you can accrue future value to the owners of the original asset, right? It's almost like creating value out of thin air. So the way to think about it is this is utility, right? And as an equity investor, you always think about cash flows. You always think about, when you buy, let's say for example, when you buy a stock, right? You're always looking at future cash flows. What kind of cash flows can this particular asset generate in the future? And then when you're discounting back to present value, what is the current price of this asset?
Yeah.
I think it's very difficult to use an equity lens to look at NFTs because the future cash flows is just not straightforward, right? But when you have things like Bored Ape come up where they can create utility by airdropping newer assets to you, or we can go into more examples later, like they have book deals, right? They might have an ape #ape token come up in the near future.
Collaborations with Adidas and like
correct.
with music.
Collaboration Adidas, and various other collaborations. This creates this sort of future value that you can almost imagine. You have to imagine quite far, but it you're able to bring that to the present, and you see that this is iconic, and this is something that I might want to invest in.
So it's almost like you say in private equity, you're looking at like discounted cash flow model to like probably value something. This is almost like discounted future utility almost.
Correct.
And trying to see
but it's not as clear cut, right?
Yeah.
I think in private equity, when you look at stock, the cash flows are always very clear.
Yeah.
Right. When you talk about NFT, it's very lumpy. It is all over the place.
Yeah.
Right. You cannot get a good sense of it. So you need some form of imagination. So it's a bit like start investing.
Yeah.
It's more like venture investing than it is private equity.
So was BAYC your first NFT?
No, it wasn't.
Okay, so what's the story there?
So my first NFT was actually this was on Solana. Okay, so I know a lot of people start with ETH, but I started on Solana because I read about their lower gas fees.
Yep.
So one day I downloaded the Phantom wallet, which is Solana's Web3 wallet, and I
decided to just buy a...
Yeah, and I went to the Solana. I was thinking of what to buy, right?
Yeah.
So but Solana at that point in time didn't have a really good rap. I think a lot of Solana NFTs at that point in time was seen as copycat NFTs, right?
Yes.
So you had like SoPunks, which is a copycat of CryptoPunks, right? You had Solana Memes, which is a copycat of Meebits. Yep. So I was thinking, okay, what's the original, Solana NFT? And I found Solana Monkey Business.
Okay.
It was quite interesting. It was just an ape, pixelated ape, similar to CryptoPunks. I went to the website, and then I was thinking, what is iconic and can represent today, right? So I found that there were some monkeys wearing masks, like COVID masks.
Yeah.
So I decided to go for those. At the point in time, I still didn't know what was rarity, and I haven't figured out what rarity trade was.
Yeah.
So I just went for floor monkeys with masks.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't know what happened that day. Transactions were really slow.
Yeah.
So I deposited some ETH into my Phantom wallet, and then I clicked buy.
Okay.
And the transaction didn't go through. I clicked buy again, and I did that 4 times.
Okay.
And
oh my god.
At the end, I found out that I had 4 Solana monkeys.
Okay.
At the point of time,
spend on it lah.
Yeah, I overspent on it. At the point of time, Solana monkeys was around I think about 80 SOL.
Okay.
And each SOL was about maybe $90 per SOL.
Oh, that's still a lot of money.
Yeah,
it's like $7,000 plus dollars. Okay, so instead of spending $7,000, you spend like what, $30,000 plus?
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think today they are doing pretty well. So it turned out to be a project that was, I think, quite original. The community is very strong. The Discord is very strong. I think together with DJ and Ape Academy, I think Solana Monkey Business will do pretty well.
Okay. And then after that, you decided to look at BAYC.
Yes, that's right. I think BAYC really came up I've heard of the project. I wasn't really thinking of buying BAYC at that point in time, but I was looking at art blocks for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, and maybe just as an introduction, I think when you talk about NFTs, there are quite a few number of NFTs, right? You have the generative art, which is typically something like art blocks, where the transaction hash which you use to mint the NFT changes the attributes of the NFT itself.
Yeah.
Right. So that's generative art, and I think art blocks is the most famous gen art platform. Then you have the profile pics, which is like your Bored Ape, your CryptoPunks, like your Solana monkeys, and I think these are more, to quote Arthur Haynes, this is more like digital flexing.
Yeah.
Right. And people pay a lot of attention to the rarity traits. For example, like, if the ape has laser eyes.
Yeah.
And it must be blue laser eyes. It's not red laser eyes, right? Blue laser eyes are the most.
It's the rarest.
It's the most valued. I won't say it's the
holy
rarest.
grail.
Yeah.
It's not the rarest. So the rarest Bored Ape is actually an ape that has a dagger in the mouth.
Right.
Yeah. So I think the how people perceive rarity and how they perceive value, right?
Different.
It's quite different.
Yeah.
So it can be very rare, but it might not be valued because it is not aesthetically pleasing. Which is why I always say, like, if you want to go for NFT, you have to find something that you like, and you have to find something that people will like.
Yeah.
But the trick here is that it is very difficult at mint to find out what the community likes at the very short amount of time.
Yeah.
Right? How do you determine what the alpha is and you go for that?
There's just not enough data.
There's just not enough data, right?
Yeah.
Number one, at mint, for example, for generative art, or if the art is not revealed at mint, you will not be able to see all the entire collection all at once, or you won't even have the time to go through 10,000 collection at once. You wouldn't know that, hey, this is what the community values, this is what the audience values, right? So sometimes you got to take a chance. But what I'm saying is that, rarity doesn't necessarily equate
To value.
to value.
High value. Yeah.
So, for example, like the rarest Fidenza, which is the most, in my view, the most valued generative art out there, is nowhere near the most expensive. Right, the most expensive is probably ranked like 300 out of 999.
Yeah.
Right. So it's how over time how the community perceives that aesthetic value and how they value that, and then it becomes rare.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. So I mean, nowhere at this form of level, right, with like blue chips, but I think like on the Terra network, so there's Lunar Bulls, which quite a lot of people who could afford it like aped into, right?
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because for some reason, like Lunar Bulls didn't do too well, relatively okay, but the hype died down for like Luna NFTs quite quickly. But for some reason, right, people are collecting Lunar Bulls that's iced out. So they have this gold necklace, and there's this whole Lunar Bulls iced out community. And so now any Lunar Bull, right, like the floor price, I mean, I'll look it up quickly, but any...
Luna.
I think
How
so.
much more is it?
That. So there are 10,000 Lunar Bulls altogether, right? The Lunar Bulls, like the floor price is around 3 Luna. I think it's like 2.8 now, right?
I see.
But any Lunar Bull with this iced out like trait, which is not even that rare, right? It's about 10 times the floor price.
Okay.
And because
Interesting.
they built a community around this, so there's this like iced out Lunar Bulls or something, and all of them are just like sniping. They start off sniping like Lunar Bulls with the necklace.
I see.
And then more people are
Yeah,
buying it now.
the difficulty is finding out like which of this trade is gonna suddenly hit
Yeah.
pay dirt, right? You wouldn't know. You never know, right?
Yeah.
And there is also some form of like internal shilling going on,
Yes.
Yeah.
right? So suddenly they decide that, hey, let's create value for this particular trade
Yeah.
by telling everyone that this is the most valuable thing out there, right? Not everyone agrees with it, but I think this is crypto Twitter is a world where the loud minority
That's true.
will win
Yeah.
out, right?
Yeah.
That's true. That definitely happens, but I guess on a positive spin, it just shows how important like community
Correct.
is, I guess.
Absolutely.
In that sense. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we talk about the technical part and the reasons like why you're bullish on NFTs, especially with Web3, right? But I also have to kind of like address the elephant in the room, right? Which is that Bored Apes are expensive. How do you justify paying the prices that you did for like a BAYC, right? Because I mean, looking at it, like maybe it's about like 40-50 ETH. This is like more than someone's annual salary almost. How do you go about justifying that?
So for Bored Ape, I think as long as they review that it's going to be worth more in the future, I think it is worth taking the investment.
Okay.
That's my view. And maybe I'll just talk about the second ape that I went into. So this particular Twitter account I follow, he was very bearish on apes, but he's a quite respected member of the community in Twitter. He flipped his view, right? And he's also a punk. He's also a punk owner.
Okay.
So when he flipped his view, then there was a bit of rumblings in the crypto Twitter itself, and I think the floor started to move. And at a point in time, Jimmy Fallon also went in. Whether he was paid by MoonPay to do it, or he did it of his own accord, I don't know, right? But at a point in time, very quickly I saw the floor started to move. It was around 30 ETH at a point, and it went to 35. I said, I have to go in.
It's
I have to ape
away.
it, right?
Okay.
It was running away at a point, and at a point I was really looking for a second ape. So very quickly, I took a look at what the floor was, and I bought a bit higher than the floor, so I got a robot ape that was priced higher than the floor. But I think that weekend was when the floor went from 30 ETH all the way to 45, 50 ETH, very, very quickly. So I think it's times like this where you see a certain rumbling in the market, and I think you have to you sort of have to have a pulse on the floor itself. And I think Bored Ape itself, it's not just about the current price that you pay. I think Yuga Labs themselves, they've been doing an excellent job in building up. You wouldn't say the community was built up by Yuga, but they set the basic building blocks that created such a great project. I mean, this hopefully this will age well, right? You never know in the NFT world, right? But I think that so far they've done a great job.
Yeah.
They are creating a mobile game actually. It's supposed to launch today, but
Yesterday.
Yesterday. But Apple pulled it from the App Store.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe it's because of NFT or some form of crypto. Right. So Apple pulled it. Yuga also they worked with Adidas.
Yep.
And something I want to mention about Bored Ape particularly is the grassroots movement of the community. So when Sean Yoon he sold his group of Bored Ape to via Christie's, right? I think this was about a few months ago. Yeah. So someone just hashtagged suit up for Christie's, okay, and someone created an app called Ape Closet, and there are a few of these around which allow you to change the attire of your ape, right? So suddenly within a day, everybody changed their ape outfit into suits, and the hashtag suit up for Christie's, which I found that it was such a remarkable and quick way of marketing for something, right?
It's driven by a community.
Exactly. It's driven
organic,
grassroots, ground up, and it's very organic, right? You don't feel that it was shill, you don't feel that's influenced in any way. It was just very natural. Yeah. And I think Adidas as well, this wasn't promoted by Adidas, but Adidas also collaborated with Bored Ape in the metaverse, and they also collaborated with Punk Comic and G Money. Yeah. But that Ape Closet created tracksuits for all the apes to wear. Yeah. Right. So we all changed to tracksuits. I changed my ape to a Adidas hoodie, right? Yeah. And I made him wear it, and it's now my profile pic. And I think it's just a great way of marketing, for brands, right? And I think brands can really use this as a tool for marketing to a very targeted audience, not just the 10,000 ape owners, but also the followers of these 10,000 ape owners who can also be very influential people on Twitter. Yeah,
and in their own circles.
Correct.
You talk about having a pulse in the markets, right? Because like you mentioned earlier, there was like rumblings in the markets. Is this purely on Twitter, or like what other like sources are you looking at?
Right now, I would say my main source of information is on Twitter. I find Discord a bit difficult to track. Yeah. And there's a lot of nonsense going on Discord.
It's a bit noisy as well.
Yeah. So Twitter, I find that is the best form of information. I think Twitter is remarkable. I think, as compared to the other, social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram, where you're often facing, you're seeing noise. You're seeing noise, either that or very filtered pictures, right? You'll see what people want you to see. I think on Twitter is the most organic way of expressing your thoughts, right, and sharing of thoughts.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's a bit more streamlined also, like you just get the information that you want to know. And I think threads have been something that's been like so amazing for Twitter as well, especially with people that are trying to get into the space and want to learn more.
Correct.
I think threads has been really amazing.
So for you, you're talking about, you spoke about Pulse, right? Are there any interesting or notable projects that you're tracking? What's your NFT strategy? Which one are you looking out for right now?
Okay, so right now I think in the gen art space, it is a bit, it is definitely
Quiet.
a down market. Yeah, it's very quiet and it is a down market. And I think the issue there for generative art is that people have the impression that the supply is unlimited for gen art.
Okay.
Because art blocks can
Have new projects.
certain seasons, right? They have 5 seasons, they can have another 5 seasons, and even though each project itself
Unique.
has limited supply, like 1,000 or 500, but they can have unlimited seasons.
Yep.
So then you have a lot of generative art out there, which I don't think the market is ready to absorb. You might have 1 or 2 iconic projects like Fidenza, which is going to hold its value for some time. And again, how it reaches iconic status, that's another debate. But I think generative art is just generally seeing a pretty down season now. I think for profile pics, because it is very difficult for Yuga Labs to come out and say, I'm going to increase. In fact, it's impossible for them to say that I want to increase the supply of Bored Ape from 10,000 to 20,000.
Yeah.
They will never do it. I think the main focus of them is to how do I maximize the utility and the value of this 10,000 Bored Apes, right? Via collaborations with the real world, advertisements, doing book deals. They will focus their efforts on this 10,000 apes. So there is a certain supply cap for profile pics. I think for something else like one-of-one art, like artists like Xcopy, or Cody, right? Cody has a very interesting stereoscopic series called Decentralized. So basically, he just takes he re and deconstructs a face, for example, of Vitalik Buterin or Warren Buffett, and and he's very famous for doing that for this Decentralized series. These one-of-one arts are very unique.
Yeah.
And the supply is just one, right? So you cannot have a lot of supply. Every piece is unique on its own. I also like artists such as DK Motion. I like Haru Komoda, which is an artist from Japan.
Yeah.
I have a couple of his pieces as well. So I think one-of-one is going to maintain value, but obviously only the top tier artists are going to be there. The ones struggling, the ones at the floor are almost going to struggle in my view.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it almost feels like for NFTs, right, community plays a very big part in sustaining interest, floor price, and organic developments and marketing stuff, right? So it feels like if you do gen arts and one-ones, right, very hard to build a community behind it.
Yep.
Exactly.
Such a limited number of pieces.
Yeah, I think the way to look at that is, you will probably generate utility from profile pics, because these profile pics can be used in a very explicit manner as a profile pic, right? And there's 10,000 of those and they can work with brands, right? So I think you can understand the utility that can come from profile pic. You cannot really derive that from a one-of-one or from generative art. Because it is very difficult for a brand to work with, Xcopy. Right? Or to work with, Fidenza, right? I mean, it might be possible, but I just don't see that happening. So I think for generative art and for one-of-ones, they have to be seen more like real art, rather than, having utility that can bring you cash flows in the future.
Okay.
Yeah. So and another thing I want to talk about for Bored Ape is Jenkins the Valet. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of it.
No.
So it's really interesting because I don't even know who it is, right? I mean, all of them are like, I just see an ape photo on Twitter, right? So Jenkins the Valet, I think when he minted his ape, he realized that, hey, this ape looks like a valet, right? So I'm going to call him Jenkins. And what he did was he created NFTs and sold the NFTs. So he sold 3 tiers of NFTs. One is a valet ticket, one is a stand, and the other one is a yacht, right?
Okay.
And each of these NFT tiers each of these NFTs will give you different tiers of access to the project.
Okay.
After that, they signed on with CAA to represent them, and they even signed on the best-selling author Neil Strauss, who wrote the game, right? To write a biography of Jenkins. And they said that whoever buys the NFT tokens would be able to license your ape and get a part of future royalties and profits that come from my book sales.
Right.
Wow.
Of this. So 50% of the book sales from the first book would go into would be distributed as profits to the the ape owners who have licensed their apes to Jenkins.
Okay. Wow.
So this was very interesting because I've never seen NFTs being used in this manner.
Yeah.
And I literally just signed the license agreement. I had to go online, I had to sign on the website, I had to sign the license agreement.
Yeah.
So I bought a stand, a key and a valet ticket. Each of these cost different prices, and each of these, for example, for the ticket, gives you a mention in the book.
Yeah.
I think for a stand, it gives you a chance to be an extra in the book.
Oh,
okay.
cool.
You have to buy the yacht to be a main character.
Yeah.
So the yacht is really expensive.
So we've got a lot of members of our community that are either new to NFTs or like are interested in jumping into it. And the problem is that every day there's like a new NFT project that comes out, right? Like
Not just one.
Not like many, right? Every day there's many new projects coming up. So like we talked a little bit about utility. We spoke a little bit about like the art, right? But what advice do you have for them in terms of looking out for the next NFT project to like jump into?
I mean, this is a really difficult question to answer. I think, some people go into NFTs because they want to make money, right? They want to make multiple folds of money. I think, that can be a reason. And I won't say whether it's right or wrong, but personally, what I'll do is I'll try to avoid cash grabs. I will try to avoid obvious pump and dump programs, or I will avoid things that are extremely hyped up.
What does an obvious pump and dump look like to you?
I would say Macaverse is probably
Okay.
I mean, obvious pump and dump. Typically, when I look at a project, if I mint it, then I would just buy like a couple, and I'll buy it very cheap, right? Just to see what it's about, just so they can go in and mint. But I think I will only start to put in more if I like the community, I like the project, which also means that I will not buy it cheap. I will only buy it secondary, right? But that kind of de-risks your investment somewhat, right?
That's the price you pay for that, a bit more certainty.
Correct. That's right. So you won't get the multiple fold, but I think at least you get to see how this community is like and whether you like the art. You get to see the entire review before before it comes up. So I think that's what it is.
Okay.
Great. So, I'll talk a bit more about for those new to NFTs. So, I think that, there are a lot of thought leaders in this space, but we always have to be very careful about, influencers who are shilling their own projects, who are shilling their own bags, right?
Yeah.
But, there are a lot of thought leaders in space. Like on Twitter, I follow like 6529. I think he writes very well, and he really gives very solid views on the NFT space, not on what projects to buy, but more on like what's happening on the macro side. There was one point in time where I tried like copy trading some of the top buyers, so you can actually see in their wallet, because everything is open, right? You can just go to OpenSea and you can look in their wallet what they were buying. But I don't think that's a very good strategy, because very often they'll be buying like Xcode for 250 ETH, and there's no way you can copy
You don't have the same capital as
you just don't have, right? You just don't have. I've been playing a bit of Foundation. So the new up and coming artists would mint on Foundation, and I found quite a few that I like there. Usually I would say I wouldn't go above 0.2, 0.25.
Okay.
0.5 is probably the max I'll pay for an artist on Foundation. But I think those are really the bet there is that this artist is going to be famous in the future.
Yeah.
Right. I think, and that's a really hard call to make, I think. So all I can say is that for someone who wants to enter into the space, spend time understanding the technology first. Spend time understanding what an NFT is and why you're interested in it. Next, find a project that is aesthetically pleasing to you, right? And I think treat this as something that you can hold for a very long term.
Right? Enjoy the art.
Yeah, you enjoy the art, you like it, you want to put it as a profile pic, as a cover picture, and you clearly must know the difference between right click and save and why you're actually minting it and the true ownership of NFT. I think that then you'll be really more interested, and you'll be in for the long game rather than just for the short game.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you have 10 ETH today, what will you buy? Which project will you buy?
Wow.
Good question.
I might pick up a few floor pieces from art blocks.
Okay.
Yeah.
But art blocks is still it's very, very subjective, right? There's so many projects.
Yeah, it is. There are a few that I really like a lot. Like, I really like Geometry Runners. I think it's really cute.
Yeah.
I really like Meridian.
Okay.
Yeah, so there are some of these which I already have and I don't mind adding on, because I think that, the art is really good. And I think generative art itself, the fact that your art is different and unique and it's tied to the person who minted it because of transaction hash, that is very special to me.
It's like a piece of you that's part of the art.
Exactly. It's like if you had clicked 1 second later, your transaction hash would have been different and the art would have been different. So I found that really quite unique and special about those kind of arts. But always be careful about, going in when everyone is hot. So, now is not a bad time to look at art blocks, I think, when nobody's looking at it.
Okay.
So, you're a owner of 2 apes. Would you ever sell any of those apes? How much would it take you to sell it?
So I think at this point I will not.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there is still a lot of exciting new initiatives coming out for BOYC.
Yeah.
So I would probably not.
Yeah.
But
But what if, sorry, let me cut you off. What if someone offer you 1,000 ETH, which is 20x?
that's not gonna happen for my ape.
But what if though? So are you gonna
really
instant sell? Are you gonna instant sell? Knowing that it's gonna accrue you value, all the utilities that's gonna come. 20x No.
That's not gonna happen for me.
Okay. Okay.
Which means if it does happen, you probably will.
I mean, if it does happen, that means the entire project is done very well. Then, I'm very happy to sell it. But we always know that there's a price, for everything, for a certain rarity, So I kind of know where my floor is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think the main reason for holding is I'm still excited about the project.
Yeah.
I still think they're doing a lot of things. I don't think they're gonna stop collaborating with. It's gonna be Adidas today, it's gonna be Under Armour tomorrow, it's gonna be Nike. And then suddenly they're gonna collaborate with a lot of other people and brands. They are gonna find a way to accrue value to owners. That's what I believe. So that's, if there's still upside, then I think it makes sense to hold rather than to sell.
Okay.
But I always believe that when you enter a project, you should at least get 3.
Okay.
Right. One, to cover the cost of the 3.
Yeah. Okay.
Assuming it goes up.
To sell, because
To sell it.
Jacky's biggest regret with MAYC, I think.
Yeah.
And then the other one, maybe just to hold it.
Yeah.
And the other one to sell it at a later date, assuming it goes out even more.
Right.
And one just to hold it for, posterity, just to hold it for long term.
Okay.
Yeah. So that you always remember this project, but if it brings you you a lot of happiness and joy.
Okay. So in your whole NFT investing journey, right, any biggest regret or not?
Yeah.
I mean, if you ask me, I never buy more. It was so obvious on hindsight, right? Like, obviously,
Yeah, there were probably a few projects where I aped in a bit more than I should.
Okay.
I could have gone a bit slower, like in terms of deployment, but I think it's still a pretty long game.
Yeah.
Hopefully this ages well again.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what I think.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching the Chain Debrief podcast, and also a massive thank you to Tian Hong for joining us, our very, very special guest, to talk to us about NFTs and to share a little bit more insights that I'm sure most of you hopefully will have been very grateful to hear. We also have links below to follow us on our Telegram communities. We also have NFT Debrief if you want to know more about NFTs. We also have a separate Telegram community for that, and more links below. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed what you watch, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.